You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma Podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode down at City Hall today with the one and the only Mayor David Holt. Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
Yeah, welcome back. So we were just chatting that I was episode 26 and now I'm 600 and something. So exactly. You've had a lot of conversations. Since we last spoke.
Learned a lot of things, but you've obviously been very busy. The city's been growing. A lot of things have happened in the city since then. But one thing I do remember about you is that you're a lover of Thunder basketball, and what a time to be a Thunder fan right now.
Yeah, and I mean, again, since episode 26, we've gone through some peaks and valleys. But yes, right now, as you and I sit here, we are the number one team in the Western Conference. So it is an exciting time indeed.
How does that change, or how does that make you feel as mayor to be number one, but also to be a huge fan as well? Like, what's that? What's that like?
Well, I mean, as a fan, it's just, you know that these moments can be fleeting, and you want to enjoy them, and you only get so many of them in a lifetime. So we definitely want to enjoy this ride that we're on and this team that we have. As a mayor, obviously, like the first accomplishment for a city is just to have a team. That is a certain level of relevancy in American life that has a lot of economic and cultural consequences that I think are all positive. And obviously we spent the last year or so talking a lot about that in this community. But it's kind of, when your team is good, it's like a whole nother level. I mean, it's the difference between, walking into the NBA store in Manhattan and seeing one Thunder jersey or 50 Thunder jerseys. I mean, it's just, when your team is good, obviously there's even more benefits because you have even more of a global profile.
Right, yeah. We'll talk about jerseys, perfect transition. 2019, we had the City Edition.
Is that when the first City Edition came out?
Right? 2019. Yeah, that was one of the coolest jerseys I think we've had. We've been through some great designs, but I think that was one of the coolest jerseys. Did you have a part in that? Do you have any design influence in that?
Not really. No, they haven't. They haven't necessarily consulted me. That's
reach out for you on
that
one?
What they're doing.
You have one, though, right?
I have. I usually end up at themes with many of the City Edition jerseys through the years. My favorite is probably the Native American theme. I don't know if that's what you're referencing. Yeah,
the blue and the blue and the orange. That's really good.
Well, it's like kind of more
teal.
of a turquoise. Yeah, teal maybe is right. Yeah. But yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Yeah. So you mentioned obviously it's super important to have a team. We had a vote. It went very well. We now, we'll have a new arena, which is awesome, because I said this on a previous podcast. I think Oklahoma City struggles to have a real identity without a basketball team, because we have so much identity in the basketball team. And so excited about that. Outside of the basketball stuff, because we could talk about basketball for hours. I know we could. Tell me a little bit about this what's your thoughts on this new largest tower that may be coming to Bricktown, and the idea behind that? And
well, I fear this will date the podcast a little bit, because we may not be talking about this within 2 days or something. But because listen, developers often in this city and in all cities make big announcements, and sometimes those things happen, and sometimes those things don't. I do believe this developer has some credibility, and we obviously had already partnered with them on a TIF where we think there will be some high-rise projects that come out of this piece of property in Bricktown. So I'm not dismissive at all of this developer as a credible source of information. I just think this particular aspect of it, which has come in a little late, may be a little more aspirational. I'm not, I'm certainly not opposed. I'm not standing in the way, but I'm not putting a down payment on the, 120th floor condo either, or whatever. So I guess we'll just see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that plays out, and if we do get it, great. But it just adds into one of the quirky things that Oklahoma City has, and maybe one day Sam Anderson will come back and write another book about what has happened since his Boomtown book came out.
Right. So we'll see if the tower ends up more like the story of the thunder in Boomtown, or more like the story of the sonic booms. Or the mountain that you can ski on, or
Right. Yeah. That was the one thing I couldn't believe, was that we had sonic boom testing in Oklahoma City back in the day. That just seems crazy. Talking Boomtown, tell me about your ice cream. Was that a huge moment, a huge bucket list for you?
I'm kind of a Martha Stewart figure now. I have sort of a brand. I have a family of brands. I have a beer and an ice cream, and it's cool that's worked out. And obviously, in every case, we utilize that platform to benefit certain nonprofits here in the community. So the ice cream supports the Homeless Alliance. The beer has been supporting our animal shelter, and I think it's great. I believe there's still some available at Boomtown Creamery locations across the metro, and it's a cherry vanilla mix, and it's really good.
Yeah. Do you have a kind of? Will you have a stocked supply at the house of it?
I had bought like 5 pints, and I think I'm down to 1, so I probably need to go shopping again.
All right. And will the beer kind of stay on tap or stay in can? Or
so, it's a batch. Okay. And so they make a certain number of cans, usually about 4,000, and they obviously make a certain number of kegs, and then when it's out, it's out. So this was the second iteration of it, and we'll see how long it lasts, or if I don't even know, maybe if they're out of it already, but that was something released in the fall, and it's always up to them whether they want to keep doing it, but I'm always game.
Yeah. So I have a list in front of me of the things that kind of have happened since we last recorded, or some of my personal highlights.
Sure.
We have a softball team now, a Spark. We have obviously Olympic rowing facility, which was here, but has seemed to grow massively. We have a new terminal at the city, Will Rogers Airport. We've got Scissortail Park Convention Center, First Americans Museum. The Capitol had a restoration. Like, there's so many cool things that have happened.
This is all true.
Which doesn't seem like that long ago, probably, right? But a lot of things have really happened.
There's also a global pandemic,
that
and
too.
The greatest racial reckoning in the country in a half century. Yeah, there was a couple things
that's
happening.
That's on the list. We have streetcars now. We've got the new rapid bikes. You've been busy, right? And I know people ask you about all those things all the time, but I want to ask you about some fun stuff as well.
Sure.
So, you went to the World Cup.
Yes, that was great.
Tell me about that experience, going to the World Cup.
I'm like most Americans in that my soccer fandom has been somewhat minimal. And so getting to have that opportunity has definitely changed my engagement with soccer. And my kids are really into it, especially my son. He's really into it now. I mean, he's picked a team in the Premier League, and he's Chelsea, by the way. He's picked a team in Serie A, which is Roma, and we actually went to a Roma game last year in Rome. So all of it, I think inspired a bit from that experience in Qatar, getting to see the energy at World Cup games is just like totally next level. You know, we'll have that type of energy at a Thunder game for like a few minutes, but they just maintain it for 2 full hours, you know, and the chanting and the singing, as you well know, never stops, you know. And I got to see U.S. versus England, and then I also got to see Mexico, Argentina. I got to see Messi score a goal. I saw Wales versus Iran. So 3 games, and fascinating opportunity. And now, can't wait for the next one, which of course will be right here in the United States.
Yeah, that's gonna be exciting, and seems like we will have a stadium here as well coming, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a stadium. By the way, isn't that the Welsh soccer?
I am from Wales, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So you know that game well.
I know well, and I totally agree with you. It's hard to replicate the atmosphere here versus around the world.
Yeah. So I digress. Yes, we are going to have a soccer stadium. It probably won't be in place in time for the World Cup, but this has been, you know, an ongoing conversation in our community, and I really... I recognized that if we did not make this investment, we really would probably end our relationship with professional soccer in Oklahoma City, and I didn't think that was a wise thing for a top 50 city that aspires to be a global city to do. So we made that investment, and then recently we were able to enhance it a little bit, which I think was pretty important. I mean, it was always a very modest budget for this stadium. $40 million, now it's $70 million, and I think that will be more in line with USL stadiums, and continue with, you know, the eye that we're sort of staying in the game of soccer, and also staying in the hunt someday perhaps for an MLS team, which would obviously require further stadium investments, but at least like kind of staying on that path was, I think, pretty important for our community.
Yeah, and it'll, like you mentioned, it ties into the World Cup coming here and just the general buzz for soccer in America, right? On football, as I like.
There's really only 2 global sports: soccer and basketball. Every other sport certainly has its followings here and there, but outside of America, nobody really cares about football, American football. You know, there's billions of people who love cricket, but they pretty much all live in India. You know, I mean, like, you just go down the list. I mean, the only sport that really seems to penetrate around the world, or I should say, the only sports that really seem to penetrate everywhere, are soccer and basketball. So I feel very lucky that we're in the NBA for that reason. I always think it's really cool, and that's really important that we happen to be in the one major professional league in America that really is the premier league for the globe. The MLS is not that necessarily in the game of soccer, but it's the best we've got, so I want to stay on that path, and I want to be in the game because it is the global sport. Yeah.
What were the biggest things you took away from going to the World Cup then in Qatar and seeing everything over there and just being around? I mean, everyone's eyes are on the football pitch at that point.
Yeah, well, like I said, the energy of the fans, and obviously, I guess perhaps the ability of any community to get to host, you know, those amazing events, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's the NBA Finals. I mean, those are really unique opportunities, and obviously, countries and cities, you know, will make massive investments to have those opportunities because you get the eyes of the globe on you, and there's something to that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, people talked about. I mean, Qatar's a little bit a small country, a little bit out of the way. I mean, it is not a place that many people had thought much about. But they certainly were talking about it a lot during the World Cup, before and after. And it's a complicated country, so not everything was complimentary, but nevertheless, it was certainly on the radar in a way it had never been before.
Yeah. I think it was May 2023, Oklahoma City was named something like the 6th fastest growing city. And, you know, obviously you're at kind of the helm of all that, and it's not just you. Obviously, we have a great team here, and a lot of people who are excited about growing the city. You think of Gary Brooks opening up the National, and just kind of the determination, just using him as an example. But one of the things looking back that I think obviously helps us was opening up of Scissortail Park and the convention center to bring people in. But the coolest thing, and I'm extremely jealous, that you got to basically introduce Kings of Leon to the crowd that night, and they give the biggest mic drop I think I've seen it, definitely in that park. Tell me about that. What's it like, you know, giving them a Kings of Leon lane and meeting them, and obviously they're huge OU fans and Oklahomans, but what was that experience like?
Right. So, well, when I came into office, you know, I was aware that Scissortail Park was going to open sometime in the first 2 years of my term, and I certainly thought that it deserved, a really special kickoff. I thought that in and of itself was a special opportunity. If you recall the timing of it, we opened it just like 2 or 3 months before the vote on Maps 4. So I also saw it as an opportunity to sort of remind everybody how much they love maps. It'd be a great lead in to that campaign. So I worked with, envisioning that largely with Graham Colton and, talking about Kings of Leon as a real option because we could had the contacts there to sort of have direct conversations and, and maybe even negotiate something of a friend price, But still, I spent, a year of my life leading up to that concert raising $1 million plus, to make that possible. It's obviously it was free to the residents. It was not free to anyone else. We still had to obviously pay the band and pay all of our expenses, and there's a lot that goes in, to turning that park into a rock concert venue. So, so perhaps my enthusiasm on the night was a bit related to having, worked on that really for a year of my life, and obviously getting 30,000 people to turn out was amazing, and a lot of incredible energy. And I almost can't believe this myself when I say it out loud, but I had absolutely no thought in my mind of dropping the mic when I was walking onto that stage. It wasn't like planned in any way. I really was sort of, I think, caught up in the moment. I really, I never discussed that with anyone. I never thought about that. It wasn't like a thing that I even knew I was capable of. It really just sort of happened. I'm glad J.D. Baker, who was on my staff at the time, was there to capture the moment on video, and kind of a fun night for sure. Definitely one of the more magical evenings I've had as mayor.
Right. Yeah, that's what a night, right? To have them rock out in an open Sizdale Park and having actually good weather for it as well, which is huge in Oklahoma.
Right.
Yeah, they seem like they would be the peak of, obviously you have city hall sessions and people come in, like having Kings of Leon play in your backyard is kind of pretty good, right?
That was very cool. And as you said, we named a street after them earlier that day in Bricktown, kind of matching some other musical namings that we have in Bricktown. Several of them were born here, so that's the connection. Sometimes people think of them as a Nashville band because that's where they kind of formed, but they're really Oklahomans. And they'd done some things for our community after the tornadoes a decade ago, and so, anyways, it was all wonderful, and I think they feel more of a bond with Oklahoma City than ever before as a result, and it was a heck of a way to open the park, and I hope we get to do that again someday. It's really just a matter of probably me finding the time to go raise another $1 million, but
small matter of $1 million, right?
Yeah. But we definitely need to have some more concerts there sometime in the future.
Do you have? I'm sure there's a list, a dream book or something of like, hey, there's things I want to do in this city or things like that. Maybe it's not as mayor, but it's just personally, like if I get the opportunity to do this, I want to go do this. Do you have any moment to share any of those dreams? Or is that too close to the chest?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I really like sharing dreams when they're realized. So I don't know. There's lots of cool things for sure, and I'll never have enough time. But also we have had so many amazing opportunities that it's definitely I have and will continue to see plenty of dreams realized.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned, JD, one of the things that JD wanted me to ask you, and there's a few questions which I'm going to ask of his, but he did say, ask him how he balances being a father, a husband, a son, a mayor, and now a dean. And so I'd be interested, because you are a very, very busy man, and you get invited to a lot of things. So,
so you're referencing, in case anyone listening doesn't know, but I'm also dean of the Oklahoma City University School of Law. In our form of government, and this is not as unusual as people might think, we don't really pay our mayors a living wage, so our mayors generally have another job. And actually, even though we're the 20th largest city in the United States, that is true in several other large cities, especially kind of in the Southwest. But so I started that role in the summer of 23, and to answer your question, I just pride myself on my time management and and my efficiency, and I'm probably always doing at least two things at once. I suppose this is like one of the exceptions. It seems maybe too rude for me to actually like be openly texting while we're doing this podcast, but pretty much every other thing I'm doing, I'm usually doing something, else at the same time. But yeah, somehow I make it work. I wouldn't say it's for everybody. I'm not going to portray. I want to portray this as easy, but I think that having been mayor for 5 years, having been in elected office now for 14, I kind of figured out how to make it all work. And to your point, yes, of course I get invited to literally everything, but I don't go to everything. You kind of have to pick and choose pretty carefully.
He did ask me to ask you what, you spend a lot of time commuting. What is it? He said, you need to ask him what he listens to in the car. Is that an inside joke?
Well, he may think it's surprising that, I'm a child of the 90s. So, there's definitely a lot of like 90s hip hop, that I think he always got a kick out of, that we would listen to like rap music, So yeah, I think that's absolutely what he's probably getting at.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely true. But I love the Beatles and other things. I definitely have, I would say, eclectic musical taste. And obviously I love our homegrown bands like Kings of Leon, like Flaming Lips. But yeah, I think what he was most amused by, JD, when he worked for me, was how open I was listening to rap.
Yeah. Just before you go give the city address or something, or whatever it is, right? You're getting pumped up,
for sure.
getting in the mood, talking to all those people. One of the things you mentioned, obviously, Maps 4, we're kind of halfway through that, right? With the program, getting through.
Yeah, we're like at the, I don't know, we're like at the end of the beginning of the end or something. It's a long process, and part of that is driven by the fact that we collect the money and then we spend it. So so that takes longer. It's an 8-year tax, and so we're now, 4 or 5 years past the vote. And we're just starting to kind of have some more ribbon cuttings this year. But, we still have a final project to open for MAPS 3, and that passed in 2009. So it is like a 15-year journey. Unfortunately, people don't necessarily notice or get kind of anxious about how slow they might perceive that it's moving, because there's such a pipeline now. We've been opening, since we passed MAPS 4, we have still been opening multiple MAPS 3 projects, and so people kind of don't get too anxious anymore. If you go back to the history of our city in the 90s, there was a lot of angst about how long MAPS was taking to produce these ballparks and arenas that people had voted for. And in fact, the arena that we currently use, Paycom Center now, didn't open for 9 years after the original MAPS vote. So the thought that we might build our new arena that we just approved in December as soon as 5 or 6 years from now is actually pretty aggressive. Yeah. But we want to get on it. We need it.
Yeah. One of the things, you get invited to a lot of things and just kind of changing direction a little bit.
Yeah.
Know you're obviously a huge lover of food and get invited to a lot of new restaurants opening up. What is your, I guess, most recent restaurant that you've been to that was just like, wow, this is... Because Oklahoma City, we're blessed. We have a lot of awesome restaurants.
Oh, now. Gosh. Look, yesterday I had lunch
recently?
at Cheevers. Today I'm going to have lunch at Rococo. The shrimp and grits at Cheevers is my favorite dish there. The crab cakes, or lobster roll that I'll probably eat today at Rococo would be some of my favorites there. One of the, I think, indicators of our growth culturally has definitely been our food scene. And as you and I sit here, James Beard nominees were announced this week, and once again, Oklahoma City has a chef on the list, Chef Jeff of Ma Der Lao. And obviously everybody knows, Chef Black winning the award last year, and Florence is winning an award the year before that. So these were unprecedented events in our city's history. We'd never had any James Beard Award winners. So it's pretty cool. And I think it just shows what's happening in this city. It extends across the spectrum of cultural opportunities, and it's a special time for sure. And these are indicators of sort of emerging into being a major American city.
Yeah. You were a Time Magazine 100 Next Mayor by Michael Bloomberg, and got that write up, which is pretty impressive. What I want to know though is, like, obviously you're there with mayors from around the city, around the country. Is there like an internal kind of like, obviously we have a little bit of Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and you and GT have a little bit of a friendly banter. What's that like on a national level? When you talk about like restaurants, chefs winning awards and us getting this and that, like there must be a little bit of like, because Oklahoma City, we have a chip on our shoulder. Right? What's that like at the mayor level?
Mayors are so supportive of each other. It's really not too much about rivalries, unless maybe your sports teams are literally playing in some major playoff game or something. But normally it's just like sort of more like we're brothers and sisters against everybody else.
Yeah.
Because there's like nobody who understands what a mayor's going through like a mayor, So I think that we are generally each other's personal champions. I think it's more implied, our successes in our cities. We don't necessarily get together and brag on our cities. We just assume you've been following my Twitter. You know how awesome we are.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, is there, one thing, and I know this from you, just from following you, just one of your traits is like you're always looking to grow, and how can you learn, how we can improve and stuff like that. So who do you look up to in the mayor world, or from around the country that you can pick the brain of and learn from in a way that benefits Oklahoma City? Like, what do you take away, and who are those people in your life?
Oh, I don't know that it's as obvious as all that. I think it's more subtle. I love being around other mayors. I love visiting other cities. Every city story is going to be generally pretty unique, but you certainly can pick and choose things that inspire you from other communities that you want in your city. And also, anytime I go to another city, I think implicitly I'm like, okay, I want that. We're actually better than them at this. And we probably could never have that, and I think that's kind of the categories. And all of that sort of is interesting and inspiring. And more, I've actually been kind of doing that for 20 years in a sense. I may have only been mayor for 5 years, but I was chief of staff to Mayor Cornett all the way back in 2006. And our chamber annually leads a trip to other cities. So I've been doing that sort of assessment of other communities for 2 decades. And what's really interesting is it absolutely is true that going to those other cities in 2006 and going to those cities in 2024 is a very different experience. It's a lot more of, oh, we already have that, or we actually do that better than it was back then. Back then it was like we needed everything, from Cheesecake Factory to an NBA team. Right. We didn't have anything. Now it's like we have most of those things that people kind of think of as the leading indicators of a great American city. But we can always do more, and certainly whatever you see me talking about the most, like things like public transit, are reflective of the things we do need to work on. Yeah,
you mentioned kind of, working for Mayor Cornett and being around, this kind of political landscape for quite a while, 20 plus years. How has the landscape changed over the years, and then what impact do you hope to have on it going forward?
Well, I think actually this is an interesting question. I think in Oklahoma City, we've actually gotten even more solidified in our unique political culture where we just work together to get things done. And I think that already existed to some extent under Mayor Cornett, but I think I really took it to another level of talking about it and really spending. If you read all my State of the City addresses, you would realize I spend a third of the time just talking about how we do things rather than what we need to do. I really want people to kind of own what is a very unique political atmosphere. And what has changed is that everything else about the American political experience is pushing you in a different direction. It's just an incredibly divisive time. I don't necessarily think that Americans are as divided as we're led to believe, but certainly social media and cable news are pushing us in that direction, and obviously certain people seeking office are pushing us into that division, and so we kind of have to double down. That's partly why I push so hard in the other direction, is I recognize I've got to, or we'll lose this special thing that I think we have in Oklahoma City. So, look, it's a presidential election year. And certain characters are returning to the reality show, and we're going to have to obviously step up our game to preserve our unity, because there will once again be voices on the national level that are trying to pull us apart.
Yeah, people probably don't think of your role like as what you just described, right? People think of just the city. You're just focused on Oklahoma City and bringing the people in Oklahoma City together. And like you said, you have an election year and people are really right or left or whatever, and they're trying to push or fight or whatever they need to do against each other. But yeah, it's that's probably one of the hardest roles of your job, is to remind people that, like, hang on, we're here for Oklahoma City, right? I know you want someone in office,
for each other.
Like,
Yeah, no, I just try to control the little corner of the world that I have influence over, and so, I mean, we exist in that larger ecosystem, but I can't fix that ecosystem necessarily, but we can model what it should look like.
Yeah, which I think we're doing a very good job of. Have you ever thought about kind of like lie awake at night, or actually probably you don't lie awake at night because you're so busy, your head hits the pillow, you sleep. But do you thought about kind of what you want? You look over Ron Norick and Mick Cornett and all the previous mayors, and you look at their legacy and the things that they did. Do you ever think about what yours might be?
Well, I think, each of us inherited a different situation and a different kind of new plateau from which to build upon. And so certainly the previous mayors of the last 30 years all, improved the city dramatically, and I get to stand on their shoulders. But my challenges that hopefully I've addressed would be things like Maps 4, where you were sort of addressing maybe some human needs that we hadn't had the chance to focus on in the previous iterations of Maps. Obviously, securing the Thunder for another generation was something that needed to be done. I think I definitely have been pretty unique in talking about the diversity of our city and really bringing all the communities of our city together. I recognized when I took office that no mayor had really ever talked about that. I mean, that's okay. I mean, they were busy doing lots of things. But this was a city that more and more represented the whole world. And 60% of the kids of Oklahoma City are non-white. So, like, that had just never really been talked about. Obviously, our leadership and our decision-making had been a little more homogenous than that. And that was not going to be our future, and we needed to kind of recognize that and talk about that more openly. And so from the very beginning, my one OKC ethos was lifting up that concept. And it's amazing, really, when you think about, you understand, take something as so simple as the fact that previous to 2018, you would never have seen a pride flag in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
That would, like, no business or entity would have dared do that, And now it's like the zoo changes its logo to rainbows every June, just the inclusion of all people, regardless of gender or national origin or ethnicity, has really been amazing. And that to me is one of the things. And now we have a Human Rights Commission, which had been voted out, 25 years before. That's probably the most dramatic change, and it's the one we kind of take for granted because now in many ways we're just like everybody else, but we were such an outlier previous to 5 years ago.
Yeah, finishing up because I know we're getting close on time. You're a huge OU fan. You went to the Rose Bowl. And also OU kind of going, stepping out, going to the SEC.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Tell me about, as a fan, how that makes you feel.
Yeah, no, I think it's look, the SEC in recent years has obviously established itself as kind of the preeminent college football league. And so it's kind of in the end, you can talk about all different aspects of it, but in the end, if you get that opportunity, it's really a no-brainer. And for Oklahoma City, it's an interesting opportunity. Obviously, we'll have a very curious SEC fan base coming here to visit us, I think. I often remind people, I'm like, look, the games are already sold out, so it's not as if there's going to be like 100,000 Alabama fans, there's only so many people that can fit in the stadium. So, but there will certainly be, I think, especially in these early years, a lot of traveling. And we'll see, and obviously this will be new visitors for us. We're used to seeing KU jackets and Iowa State hats, and now we're going to see a different type of fan here, and obviously they will gravitate to Oklahoma City, even though the games are in Norman. There's
they got to fly.
They're going to visit. I'm pretty sure they're going to eat meals and stay in hotels here. So it's a great. I think it'll be an interesting opportunity for the city, and maybe in the long run, even an opportunity for us to host playoffs and championship stuff in all the sports. That's probably down the line. I assume you got to kind of get settled first before people start considering the new guys for that type of stuff. But that's obviously a long-term opportunity for the city as well.
Have you picked an away game to go to yet?
My son certainly wants me to. So I am thinking about it. I think LSU would be the most interesting.
That's what I'm going to.
But other people have told me they're literally scared.
It's a Friday night game at LSU. I think it's a night game. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, fully functioning adults, have told me they're literally afraid of being killed. So.
I'm going to be in the LSU fan section though. That's where I'm going because I'm safe. I got friends down there, and I don't mind wearing purple for a day just to survive, which is totally fine. Last question, something fun. What's your coffee order?
So I didn't drink coffee until 5 years ago, which probably not
Shocker.
coincidentally
Right.
coincides with me becoming mayor. But it also coincides with me tasting what my wife had been drinking and realizing that actually these are like milkshakes if you want them to be. I thought coffee was like black coffee, So no, I get like an iced caramel macchiato or something, and is that really coffee? The jury's out on that, I suppose. But yes, I get the iced vanilla lattes and lots of things that serious coffee people would probably not consider coffee, but they do have the requisite caffeine.
That's why I love that question. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for 30 minutes of your time.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate
This was fun. Good to have you back.
Yeah, hopefully we'll do this again in the next 5 years.
don't have to
when
wait
we come
5
back. But for people listening, if you don't already follow Mayor Holt, go to the Instagram, follow him, and check out all the awesome stuff that he's doing. And we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.